You're listening to the Free Thinkers Club Podcast Network.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Factors Considered. We're breaking down the results of UFC Vegas 20, and joining me is my co-host, as always, AJ, man. AJ, first and foremost, man, sometimes you're watching a fight or a slate of fights that's so great, you really got to sit back and pinch yourself and say, man, is this real? But sometimes you're watching a fight like Ciryl Gane versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and you got to pinch yourself like, is this really the performance they're putting on right now? This is really the fight that we're getting? First and foremost, man, what happened? Before we get into any of this stuff, what the hell happened with Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Ciryl Gane? I thought second heavyweight event back-to-back is going to be a slobber knocker. It's going to be banging, and it wasn't that. It was more Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. So give me your thoughts right off the bat.
That's the exact one, man. And I think a lot of what happened is Jairzinho Rozenstruik was still thinking it was the same fight with Francis Ngannou. Just wasn't able to get off, wasn't able to throw shots, and ended up really just staring in the mirror. It was kind of crazy to see because he wasn't getting any pop, any forward movement at all, and Gane was just able to pick him apart from the outside. And I mean, you could kind of expect it once we saw what was happening, but I really didn't think that was going to happen.
I agree. I didn't think it was going to happen at all. And I understand that Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a counter striker, right? He did it against the Alistair Overeem, right? That was a classic case of doing the same exact thing against Gane, except he caught him in the fifth round. And then we always ask that question. Well, what happens when you don't land that punch? What happens when, you don't get the takedown? What happens when, and we saw what happened. And it went to a 5-round decision. And I remember when we were doing our preview picks, I said, I'm going against the grain. I'm going decision here, and look at what we got, right? And it's because these things could happen, man. When you got two so highly skilled, highly powerful, quick dudes, it turns into a stalemate nonetheless. So let's get into a little record review before we really actually dive into these fights really quickly, man. So first and foremost, man, you got the job done. You still at that coveted 50% mark, 2-2, man. We had 5 fights on the main card, but since the Montana De La Rosa versus Maeda Bueno Silva fight ended in a draw, we're just not going to count that. So it was rough for me, man. 1-3, man. It took me down to 42%, 16-22, but nonetheless, like I said, we got a lot of fights coming up. We got UFC 259 coming up, man. A lot of stuff going on. I'm gonna make my way back. I'll let you enjoy this status for now, AJ. But I'm coming for you, bro. I'm coming for you, man. So listen, how about I do what we do best, man? You know what I'm saying? Let's start the clock and let's get into some recap, man. So 40 minutes on the clock. Back to the Jairzinho versus Ciryl Gane discussion, man. So what I saw was this, man. I thought Ciryl Gane, this was going to be his big test against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Biggie boy, this dude is a killer. He's got that knockout power, that intensity. But what I saw was Jairzinho Rozenstruik, it seemed like he was a little worried about Ciryl Gane's power, which is not what I expected. I knew the speed was going to be an issue. I knew all the versatility and the weapons would be an issue. But did you think that Ciryl Gane, his power was really kind of, showing in that fight versus Rozenstruik?
I didn't think his power showed really at all. He really showed his technique and, like you said, his swiftness and his agility. He really showed a full set of all his tools. But I think the power was missing. He cracked Jairzinho a couple times, and it didn't look like it fazed him at all. And in fact, in the fight, when I was watching it and I saw Jairzinho get cracked, I was hoping he realized, like, oh, this is a different fight. This dude doesn't have the same kind of power that Francis Ngannou has. This is a whole new game. And I was hoping he felt that and kind of switched the clock and kind of went back at it and as a new fight, a new situation. But it really didn't seem to happen. And I don't think Gane actually hurt him in general, any sort of part of the fight. He just really controlled the whole situation.
Yeah, understood, man, understood. And I guess the reason why I'm saying the power was kind of transcending a little bit is because when I'm watching the fight, right, I'm saying, okay, you know what I mean? Gane's kind of popping him here and there, something there, hit him with a quick combo. But it's Jairzinho Rozenstruik's inability to want to step into the pocket and trade. He kind of wanted to stay on the outside and just time him, wait for the counters. And that's why, for me, I was all like, well, if he's so scared to, or no, I'm not going to say scared, don't get me wrong, but if he's so tentative to get in there and to kind of scrap and to basically, Michael Bisping said it best, right? He says you can't walk in the rain and not get wet. Sometimes you got to take a hit to kind of deliver one, and he wasn't willing to do that. Now, I will say that he posted on Instagram after the fight, he was basically talking about like, hey man, this was like the worst fight of my entire career. I have no idea what happened, but I love how he took accountability because he says, I'm just going to work my ass off and get to the next fight, man. No excuses. But nonetheless, that's why I think that power, did transcend for Ciryl Gane a little bit, but he left a little more to be desired, you know what I mean, in this fight, right? You know, fans wanted more, the boss wanted more. Dana White, he says, listen, man, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. This was this kid's opening, debut parties for the world to get to see who Ciryl Gane is, the Frenchman, Bong Gammon out of MMA Factory, and he won. And he was like, let's just leave it at that. He won. So do you think that Ciryl Gane, with this performance, man, where does the stock go? That's the thing that I'm asking myself. Where does his stock go? Is he really like, okay, is this a dude that's going to be challenging for the title next? Like, is he that status? Or do you think maybe, which we'll get to into the matchmaking bit in a little bit, but maybe he takes a step back, and not in terms of rankings, but he fights somebody that's lower ranked than him? Because, of course, he's going to jump up now that he's dethroned Jairzinho Rozenstruik from that number 4 spot. What do you think?
I think necessarily, I don't know if he's top 5 material. He's definitely one of the baddest dudes in that division, but I don't know if he's necessarily challenging for the championship. I would honestly keep him somewhere in that 5 to 10 rank and let him fight somebody that's a little more experienced, but still has some notoriety, but not necessarily throw him to the killers. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily throw him to the top 3, top 4, because that would be a little undue justice for my man Gane.
Yeah, understood, man. And it's kind of a shame, right? Because it was this big heralded event. We hyped it up a bunch, right? I was so excited for this fight. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, this wasn't nearly, obviously, it wasn't the most exciting fight of the card. It didn't get fight of the night. It didn't even get a performance bonus. It got nothing, which also goes to show a heavyweight main event that got nothing like that. Interesting, man. So I don't have too much really to talk about it. It was just one of those anomaly nights for Rozenstruik, right? Ciryl Gane, he got the job done, and he even said it in the post-fight conference. He was like, listen, man, I get it. Dana White, the fans, they want to see a finish. They want exciting. They want KO, but I won, and, I'm happy with that. So, listen, man, this is only dude's 8th professional win, so I think he's probably like, listen, you all trying to put me on the fast track to a title. I could still rack up a couple more wins. It doesn't matter, dude. Obviously, he won 50-45. It wasn't even close, you know what I'm saying? So, putting on a clinic, man. Tanner Bozer, he actually put out in some tweets too. He said, and he fought Ciryl Gane. He lost a unanimous decision to Ciryl Gane. He says, it's not on the winning fighter. It's not their responsibility to push the pace and push the action. The dude who's losing, you got to force the action. And that's what Michael Bisping was saying too. So check this out really quickly before we move on to the next one. Is this not interesting that Michael Bisping was saying, he was like, Jairzinho Rozenstruik's corner was just kind of like super frustrated with him, talking about like, dude, you need to move forward. Like, you have to walk forward. At this point, it's the 4th, 5th round. You can't be afraid to get knocked out at this point. You need to just go forward and like I said, walk in that water and get a little bit of wet, man. But to see him not do that, it's just one of those things where it's like, how can anybody right now, legitimately, how can anybody be mad at Ciryl Gane for that? Dude's like, I'm winning. Do something to make me have to go and, really put it on you. But he didn't do that. So I guess let's move on to the next one, man, really at that point, right? So this is one that we heavily debated, between us, right? Nikita Krylov versus Magomed Ankalaev, man. And I told you before, I'm super high on Ankalaev. I kind of always have been. But Nikita Krylov, he was no slouch. And I think the fight showed that he was not a plus 260 underdog, which is how he closed the fight in, right? I think that should have been more of a pick'em. And it came down to the 3rd round. It was 1-1 into the 3rd. So give me your impressions, man. Not of Ankalaev, because we know dude's a savage. And let's talk about that in a second. But Nikita Krylov, man, over a year off, but he looked great out there. So what are your thoughts?
Over a year off and then going outside of the organization and killing it and then coming back in. Dude, Nikita Krylov's a straight up gangster, all right? Like, this dude proved 100% that he's still in the game, he's still there, and he's still a savage. And to be honest, when I was watching the fight, I saw what looked like Ankalaev being a little slower, being a little not as aggressive as he was in the last previous fights he had, and kind of taking a little bit of a back seat and letting Krylov, control a little bit of the pace, which I didn't expect at all. And that only showed that Krylov is actually legitimate, real deal, a scrapper. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna push the pace on a dude Ankalaev and you're gonna make him look a little not as sharp, it speaks levels to Krylov's game. What do you think?
Well, I said it from the jump. Krylov is a savage, man, and he needed to be respected. There was a lot of disrespect put on his name, but I saw that Krylov did what he always does, man. He's a fast starter. He goes out and gets the job done, generally speaking, normally all finishes, and went to a decision this time. And the reason why is because, listen, man, I underestimated Ankalaev's size, man. Krylov used to be a heavyweight, and he moved down to light heavyweight, and he was still the smaller man. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, Ankalaev is a tank. He's a huge man. He hits like a truck. And here's the big thing, man. Ankalaev is a counter striker, and that's what you saw the entire time, man. That right hook was just tagging Krylov time and time and time again. He was like, every time you want to hit me, every time you want to kick me in the body, I'm going to land a right hand on you every single time. And to see, though, but this is what was interesting, to see that Nikita Krylov, though I did think he got shaken up a couple times. He might have even got rocked a couple times for Krylov, right? I don't think he was ever in danger of like really getting put out. And that's what made me kind of question either Nikita Krylov is really tough or Ankalaev wasn't ready to really pull that trigger. It didn't seem like he really said, all right, man, I'm going to put it on you. Like he didn't sit down on those punches. It was kind of counter strike, keep the pace, counter strike, keep the pace. Nonetheless, man, Nikita Krylov, I don't think he loses a lot of stock for losing a very close fight like this, you know what I mean, after so much time off. And for Magomed Ankalaev, listen, man, I moved him up to, in my own rankings, I got Ankalaev at 5, man. I think this man needs a title shot soon. I think at this point, what are we waiting for? You know, this was the big test right here. So I'll propose some fights a little bit later, but I mean, what do you think, man? Is this a future champion?
Oh yeah. I definitely think he's gonna have a good run for a while, especially once the confusion with Adesanya and everything else, you know, Jan Blachowicz and all that stuff kind of clears up at light heavyweight. I definitely think, given a year or two, Ankalaev's gonna have a long future in the UFC, man, because you're right, like you said, he's huge. He's a big 205er. He's mean. And he's hard to put away. So I think he has a long career coming up in the light heavyweight division. What do you think?
I agree, man. And this is kind of what I was going to say is that, like, you know, all right, we're doing the Adesanya, Blachowicz. All right, cool. But, like, can we stop with the gimmicks for a second? Because now that we actually have real, like, game-bred, farm-bred talent coming up the rankings, it's like, why are we doing these gimmicks? Why exactly are we trying to get a dude who's from a smaller weight class to come up here and try to take the light heavyweight strap when you got real killers at 205? Now that John Jones, literally, bro, now that John Jones is out of the 205 picture, it's like, you got to let these people who have been waiting, you got to let them come up and get their shot. But I guess we're just going to have to wait till after Izzy, because this is the worst case scenario for this situation. Izzy wins the 205 strap and then goes like Amanda Nunes, try to defend both and try to do these things. Now the belt's just going to be put on hold for a really long time, and it's going to show that 205 has historically been one of the more popular weight classes in the UFC. But I think that's going to change if this belt doesn't get defended at the same rate that it was when John Jones was defending it, which was very frequently. You know what I'm saying? So very impressive win for Magomed Ankalaev, man. We're calling it right now. Both of us are in consensus here. This is a future 205 champion. I don't know if he'd be able to get past Blachowicz, man, because Blachowicz he really looks like the real deal, especially what he was able to do to Nikita Krylov, submitted him in the second round. But nonetheless, man, good things there, man. Now let's move on to this next bout, which is Montana De La Rosa versus Maeda Bueno Silva, man. We were talking about this, right? We had our little text message chat or whatever the case may be, talking about how this fight was ruled a majority draw. And it's because Maeda Bueno Silva, she did something that actually Magomed Ankalaev did too, and he didn't get called for it. She got, put down for a takedown, but she grabbed the fence, and it kind of helped that out. De La Rosa would have got the takedown if Silva didn't grab the fence. And I love that the ref came in and said, nope, that's a point immediately. I love that. No nonsense, man. Stop, because that's so much help, right? You'd be on your back if you didn't grab that cage. So Ankalaev, with that 1 point, that would have ended in a draw too. You know what I'm saying? So we got to take that into consideration. But nonetheless, man, very impressive showing for Maeda Bueno Silva. Very, I don't want to say unimpressive, but underwhelming performance for Montana De La Rosa. I was expecting a lot more, man. Give me your impressions on the Maeda Bueno Silva side first, man. Dude, she looks like a killer. What are your thoughts?
She looks like an absolute killer, and she looks strong. Like, she looks, I always say thick for the girls, and I always feel bad saying it because she's not big. She's just solid, and she hits hard, and she's very well-rounded. And we saw that she was able to, like, control her emotions, calm down, and really pick apart where she wanted to take place, whether it was even when she slowed it down to grab the fence, she was still able to see what was happening and pick her shots and actually go and roll through stuff, man. It was really impressive, and it actually raised my stock on Bueno Silva a lot because for me, she was a little underrated, a little not really necessarily known, and I was very high on Montana De La Rosa, man. I thought she had a lot of stuff going on, and Bueno Silva really put it to her and made her look like a B, C rated fighter. It was pretty impressive.
And that goes to show the dominance, right? Because Montana De La Rosa, if we're sitting there and if this is the only fight you saw from Montana De La Rosa, you might have some very harsh opinions, man. She's not that type of fighter. It's just styles make fights, right? And for this one, I think one of the big differences is that Maeda Bueno Silva, she was relentless, man. She looked mean. She literally looked like she was in there for war. And what I mean by that is every time she had her in the clinch, you saw rabbit punches, you saw elbows, you saw, strikes out the clinch, and it was nonstop. And that's what I think really racked up that advantage. You know what I mean? A takedown with no substance to it. We've seen it by the judges recently. It's just not flying anymore, man. So Montana De La Rosa, it's a majority draw, so luckily it's not a loss, you know what I mean? If anything, this is just kind of a scratch, we'll just say like, all right, whatever, let's move on to the next one. But I think the thing that she needs to shore up the most is the stand-up, man. That's where she was really getting taken control of, man. Bueno Silva hits hard, man. She hits hard. And when I was just kind of watching this and seeing the lump on De La Rosa's face, man, I think that was from Bueno Silva coming in on the ground and pound, just a big right hand down the pipe while De La Rosa was in her open guard, man. So I would like personally, I don't think this fight deserves a rematch. I don't think it was close whatsoever. I think Bueno Silva clearly won the fight, but you gotta abide by the rules, man. And that's one of the strict rules. Stop grabbing the cage. I know it's instinct. I know when you're in the middle of a fist fight, you're like, bro, I'm in the middle of a fist fight. I'm gonna do whatever I can. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's what happens. You get caught, you lose a point, you go to a draw, when in reality, she should have had a win and probably a performance bonus. So nonetheless, man, that's really all I got to say for that one. So this one, let's move on to the next one. Fight of the night, right? We got Pedro Munhoz versus Jimmie Rivera, number 2, man. And the name of the game here, the entire big story here is the calf kick, man. This changed the entire outlook of the fight. This changed our entire analysis of the fight. When we were going out and analyzing this fight, we didn't take that into consideration at all, I don't think. I knew both of these dudes were leg kickers, but we didn't see this in the last fight. So before we talk about their individual performances, AJ, I would like to, if you could just kind of give me your opinion personally about the substance of the calf kick these days, man. Everyone's talking about it, but why? What the hell is going on? Why is this thing such a game changer? And we saw, Jimmie Rivera's leg, man. Dude might have, a couple more calf kicks would have got that compartment syndrome, how to get his knee sliced open to remove some of that swelling. But is this one of the top 3 techniques in the game right now?
So, Derek, do you remember, I'd say probably 5-6 years ago when John Jones made the teep kick to the knee?
That oblique kick, yeah.
Yeah, that little oblique kick to the knee. Everybody started using it. I think this is the next iteration of that. Justin Gaethje was the first one I saw really do it in close, where he was in the pocket, firing low leg kicks. And then everybody else started to do it, man. And it's really one of those techniques that changes the game completely. Because when you can't move your leg, you saw it in the Sean O'Malley fight, his leg, he didn't break anything. He just went numb, couldn't move it. And when you lose that lack of mobility, man, you're just a sitting duck. And that's the last thing you want to do with savages in the cage, man, is be that sitting duck. And it's crazy to me. So we can see the sport has evolved leaps and bounds, right? But just within this last 6 months, we just discovered a calf kick. Yeah. Somebody had to kick somebody in the calf before. But to the level people are doing it now is absolutely insane. And seeing that just something so small, like a little muscle in your leg, can have such a big impact on so many different fights is crazy to see. It's crazy.
I agree, and that's kind of the thing too, man. Michael Bisping, right? This dude was fighting for so long, man. He's had fight after fight after fight, and one of the things he says is, you know what, man? I'm a former champion. I've never experienced a calf kick in my life, ever. And I was just like, bro, what? So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is truly a new technique to the game, right? And it's just another variation of the low kick. That's all it is. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we're seeing that you can be the toughest dude in the world. Like Jimmie Rivera, dude, tough as nails, man. He's just fighting through these calf kicks. Bilal Muhammad versus Diego Lima. He just walked through calf kicks, and some people maybe have that tenacity. But when you're a kicker like Pedro Munhoz and you're just putting everything into those, I think Pedro Munhoz knew. I think that he knew going into this. He says, all right, man, I know that, and we talked about this in the preview show. I said that Jimmie Rivera, where does he have his success at? In the pocket, extended combinations. In the first round, where was he having success at? In the pocket, extended combinations. Until Munhoz said, no. I'm kicking that leg, bro. You're not going to be able to plant. And every time that you try to throw that big overhand or those 3-4 punches, I'm coming with a kick every single time. So it's literally just like Ankalaev saying, I'm going to hit you with that right hand every time you come in, except Munhoz said, I'm going to hit you with that kick every single time you come in. And that's the game changer. That's the differentiation right there. That's just going to show that you can't check this kick. And that's something that the commentary team was saying as well. They're saying instead of trying to check this kick because you're still hitting some of that meat in your calf, what you need to do is you need to just not be there. You need to be evasive. You need to be on that, Krylov Kyokushin inside outside movement. You know what I mean? People need to go hit a karate class one time. You know what I'm saying? Get that distance striking down. But nonetheless, man, this was a domination of a performance from Pedro Munhoz. We could talk all day about how Jimmie Rivera is super tough as nails, and yes, he is. But we got to give the limelight to Pedro Munhoz, man. He gets the $50K bonus, man. He was ranked number 8. Now I anticipate him, even though Rivera was at number 9, I put Munhoz up to number 4 in my bantamweight rankings, man. I think this dude is ready to go and fight some legitimate killers, man. And, what are we waiting for at this point, man? These dudes are in their mid-30s. These guys are ready to bang. So just give me your thoughts on Pedro Munhoz, man. Are we having a late career resurgence? This dude's a killer nonetheless. So what are your thoughts?
My biggest thing with Pedro Munhoz, it's so exciting to see one of these old fighters that I grew up watching having success late in the game, man. It makes me like super excited because, man, Pedro Munhoz's game hasn't really changed much. He'll attack the legs, piece you up on the feet, take the fight where it needs to go. But we really saw the evolution of that attacking the legs in this fight, man. And it really made the whole big difference. Because when you don't have that pop on your shots, man, you're not as dangerous. And Pedro Munhoz is just chilling. It was nice to see where an old dog was having this crazy success. And it was sad to see Jimmie Rivera, like you said, taking so many hits that it might have compartmentalization syndrome. But it's so happy to me to see Pedro Munhoz actually get up there and do something, especially after his last fight against Frankie Edgar, man. He really came back and he showed that age is nothing but a number if you're training hard and you're working hard and you really keep grinding it out. That was very impressive to me. What do you think?
I agree, man. Like I'm saying, this feels like a late career resurgence, right? Having that last loss to Frankie Edgar be a split decision and then seeing what Corey Sandhagen did to Frankie Edgar, it's kind of like, okay, well, at this point, I mean, spoiler alert, I'm thinking that maybe we should get Edgar versus Munhoz too. I think they're going to need to run that one back. You know what I mean? I think that wouldn't be a bad idea necessarily. But nonetheless, man, like I said, I just think that they needed to knock this one out. I think this was more for the company than this was for their own personal careers because I think the company knew this was going to be a banger, you know what I'm saying? But in terms of furthering their own personal careers, I don't know how much this win does for Munhoz. I mean, it's a big win, avenging that's cool. But like I said, let's go a little higher up the rankings and let's go really see how battle tested that you can be. You know what I mean? But this entire card, right? There was only 9 fights on this entire card. There's only one finish, man. 1 TKO. That was the second fight of the night. Everything else went to decision. So it's also interesting to me to see that when you look at the scorecards, man, if you're able to kind of pick somebody apart and take away that wheel, right? That's really what it comes down to is you're just taking away the wheel. You're taking away their stability. They're not going to be able to move as well. They can't sit down on their punches as well. And if you can debilitate somebody like that, the scorecard ended up being 30-27 times 2 and 30-26 for Pedro Munhoz. So that just goes to show Rivera didn't win a round, and he actually got dropped so many times from getting kicked in that leg that they had to give him a 10-8. And that's kind of the point for me right here is that it's like, all right, man, we're seeing that this is changing all of the contests. So next time that we look at a kickboxing match, when we're thinking about 2 high-level strikers, 2 high-level boxers, right, we need to take these things into consideration because if we don't, then we look dumb by saying, oh, Rivera, it's not even going to be a problem. Or at least that's kind of me, right? I was like, I think Rivera handles this very easily, and to see that he just got picked apart like that, I said, well, that's why I love this game. That's why I love MMA, right? Because in MMA, man, anything can happen. This is a game of inches. This is a game of angles. And at the end of the day, man, just because you're the favorite in Vegas doesn't mean that you're going to win the fight, man. Nobody knows who's going to win the fight except the 2 people in the cage. And sometimes they barely know until that knockout punch happens, until the judges raise their hand, truly. You know what I mean? But with that being said, let's move on to this last main card bout that we had, which was Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres taking on the hard-hitting hillbilly Kevin Croom, man. And I was hyping up my boy Kevin Croom something crazy. Glory MMA, James Krause, Cheat Code Camp. Oh, man. This was a rough one, man. This was a really rough one. First off, let me just say the scorecard, right? Alex Caceres wins via unanimous decision, 30-26 times 2 and 30-27. Now, I want to ask you, this is a question about judging, once again, right? I think we always kind of have to go back to the drawing board when we're talking about this stuff. So my question to you is this. Do you get points, right? Because this should be an extension of octagon control or ring control. Do you get points for pushing someone up against the fence, shooting for 10 takedowns in a round, just pushing the action, dictating the pace of the fight, making your opponent defend and not be able to really strike you up? Do you get points for that, or are we just disregarding that? It's like it doesn't even matter. At least that in this fight, it felt like the judges said that didn't even matter. You didn't land as many strikes, so you lose the round. What are your thoughts?
That's a hard one for me, Derek, because so if you're pushing the pace the whole time, shooting for takedowns, controlling the distance and all that stuff, but not getting the takedowns, not getting the knockdowns, not actually getting the fight to where you want, or maybe even hurting him, getting him down to the ground and letting him back up, and actually like dictating where the fight goes. You're just kind of both. You're pushing the action. You're controlling the fight, and like you said, you're shooting for takedowns and all that stuff. But at the same point, he's defending the takedowns. He's moving away from the action. He's also controlling the little bit of range that he can. It's kind of hard to say that full action and shots, like going for shots should be counted, because I think the defense should also be taken into consideration. If some dude shoots 10 times and you defend every single one, who really has the point advantage there? If you're able to see these shots come in, and sure, you don't catch him with a knee or an uppercut, you're both very evenly matched, and nobody's really able to get that significant hold or significant takedown. It's hard to say to judge, man. Personally, I think the defense should count a little more when the takedown actually happens. You know what I'm saying? When you're actually on the ground and you stand up like Derek Lewis does, where you don't use any jiu-jitsu at all, you just stand up, that should count. Or even if you do use technique and you actually stand up through legitimate jiu-jitsu, I think that should count a lot more than the takedown. Because if they take you down and hold you down, that should count even significantly more, because that's just complete control. And like Justin Gaethje said, man, one dude can take you down, two men can do the dirty. So that's the last thing you really, really want is you know what I'm saying, be taken down.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, right? And so, like, listen, man, I'm in agreement with you. I can't sit here and just say just because you're forcing the action, trying to shoot takedowns, you automatically win the round. Because the other part that I guess I didn't include in there is that, Bruce Leroy was piecing him up as he was trying to shoot for these takedowns. So it's not like it was just empty, not doing nothing, right? So I'm in agreement. Bruce Leroy, he completely won the fight. And it was just a frustrating effort for me because Kevin Croom, coached by James Krause and all that, man, it just seems like he didn't do any of the stuff that his coaches were telling him to do, man. And no one can explain that but the fighters inside of the cage, man. Nobody else, should even try to really sit there and analyze it, because maybe he didn't see those openings that we thought that there were, or whatever the case may be. But this is more impressive. Let's not talk about Kevin Croom here. Let's talk about Alex Caceres, man. Madly underrated, obviously by me. You know what I'm saying? I knew that this dude gets the job done, but I just didn't know, like, all right, when a dude's talking mess to you, when a dude is like trying to get in your head, trying to say, I'm just going to steamroll this boy, which is what Kevin Croom said. Let's see how he reacts. And he said, in the post-fight conference, man, it's interesting because Bruce Leroy, he was just like, listen, man, I just needed this fool to know that he was not going to take that from me. There's no way on earth he was going to take that from me. He was the more skilled fighter. He got the job done. And ultimately, man, he says he wants a ranked opponent. He says he loves fighting. This is what he does, but he wants a ranked opponent. He's on a 4-fight win streak right now. But still, he has this weird unorthodox style that it's just kind of like, all right, man, I just don't really know. I don't really know how much that's going to work out. You know what I mean? Against really the top level featherweights of the world, right? You got the job done against Kevin Croom. That's totally cool, man. You know what I'm saying? But that's just not quite the same as the top of the heap, man. Can you anticipate, and this is a long shot, I'm not even trying to imply this, but we anticipate Bruce Leroy fighting Max Holloway in the featherweight division? Like, no, that's not, I don't want to see that. You know what I'm saying? I think we know who's going to win that. But it was a very impressive win nonetheless. He moves his record to 18-12 in MMA. And, it's another decision. I think the way that he starts getting the spotlight and the shine, though, right? You got to start finishing some folks, right? His last fight was submission win. Let's keep on that trend. See what you can do. But, all right, man, that's enough of the assessments of the damage and whatnot, man. Let's keep it pushing, man. Let's do a little bit of matchmaking, man. Let's figure this out really quickly. Or not really quickly necessarily, but let's run through these winners, right? I want to hit the winners of the main card, right? So first and foremost, Ciryl Gane. It seems really clear on this one. There's only a couple of options here, right? You can go Derek Lewis. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why Derek Lewis would take that fight. If I was Derek Lewis, I wouldn't take that fight. If I was Ciryl Gane, yeah, sure, whatever. Keep moving me up. Yeah, let's do it. Or interesting, you could fight Alexander Volkov. and he could really get tested. You know what I mean? I think that's the real test. I don't think Rozenstruik was the test. Clearly it wasn't. We didn't see it, but I think Volkov could be that test. What do you think?
Man, I was actually just looking at that exact same thing. I think Volkov is the one. I don't know if Derek Lewis will take that fight with since he has Overeem on the mind, but I definitely think Volkov is the way to go, man, because Volkov's been hurting people, and it's a little bit different of the fight he just had. Whereas if Gane fights Derek Lewis, it's kind of the same situation and where he's in Rozenstruik. Not the best wrestler, very heavy counterpuncher, and can drop you at any time. But if he goes against Volkov, he has that long range. So this gives Gane a chance to prove that he can fight anyone, that he can fight the Stipes, he can fight the Ngannous, he can fight, all these people. And maybe even if after he beats Volkov, I think they give him to Curtis Razor Blades, man. I think that would be a good fight because Curtis Blades is very, very dominant, man. And he just got caught in his last fight. You know what I'm saying? And I would like to see that just because it's kind of too not necessarily the highlight real people. You know what I'm saying? We just saw with Gane, he was just piecing him up from the outside and Curtis Razor Blades can do that, the same thing, man. He can control the fight from distance. He can wrestle. They're both very well-rounded, and I think that would be a good fight if he's looking to move up. But personally, I'd go Volkov.
Yeah, man. I definitely think Volkov would be a very interesting matchup. And like I said, it's just to see the test. Let's really see that test, man. If Volkov, if he's in this limbo right now after his last win, and they're trying to put that title shot on all these people or whatever the case may be, I think that'd be an interesting one for them to stay busy too, man. You don't just want to be sitting on the sidelines waiting for that title shot that might only get defended, one time a year. But nonetheless, man. So. Magomed Ankalaev, man, this is an interesting one just because of how kind of low in the rankings he was. He came into this fight ranked at number 11, and it really makes you wonder, okay, how high are they going to rank him? Is he going to take Krylov's spot at 8? And if he does, are they going to even push him up even further than that? So my thoughts is there's a big 205 contest coming up in the next couple of weeks, which is Dominic Reyes against Jiří Procházka. I might have butchered that name, but you know what I mean.
Or something like that. Yeah, Jiří.
Yeah, there we go, Jiří, right? So I think, what about the winner of Reyes versus Jiří? What do you think about that?
Man, that would be nice because I'm very high on Jiří Procházka, man. He's a killer coming up. I don't necessarily know if I would like to see them fight right off the bat. Just because, like I said, I'm so high on him, and I would like to see the two prospects go a little further before they meet each other. Let me throw a crazy one at you, and he does have a fight coming up. But one person I'd really like to see Magomed fight is Paul the Bear Jew Craig, because their techniques are very similar. They both can wrestle. They both have very good striking, and they're a little lower. So I'd like to see Paul Craig get a little bit more notoriety. But let's say you don't want to fight down, because that's 9 to 15 or 9 to 14, whatever Paul Craig is. If he's wanting to go up, maybe Ozdemir, maybe even Anthony Lionheart Smith, man. Lionheart would be a good challenge, especially with somebody of recognition that got finished in the last fight against another old dog. So if you give him to a young dog, a young Russian in Ankalaev, I think that'd be a good opportunity for him, especially because it's not too big of a jump up in the rankings. It's just to number 7. What do you think?
I like the Anthony Smith fight a lot more than I like the Paul Craig fight, and the reason why is because he's already fought Paul Craig, and he actually lost to Paul Craig. That's his last loss that he has on his record. He's been running through the UFC ever since then, and in that fight, it just goes to show, man. I don't know. I don't know if I'd like to see them run that back. I think that Paul Craig, he might need a couple more wins before he gets that, just because of the trajectory. This is what happens when you're active, when we're getting these big wins, man. You don't have to go, what are we doing? I ain't even need to worry about that loss. You too low in the rankings, man. Let me get some money. Let me get a championship. And Anthony Smith would be a fast-track way to really get in that conversation, because when you beat Anthony Smith, it's unfortunate. I don't want to use the word. We overuse it way too much as it is, but he's kind of like a gatekeeper, right? You know what I mean? To a degree. He's kind of like that gatekeeper who was saying, all right, man, I'm sticking around. I don't know if I'm going to get the title shot. He might have the best shot now, since Blachowicz is the one that, is carrying the strap. But nonetheless, man, I think that Anthony Smith is a good one. Now, let me get your thoughts really quickly on Bueno Silva. I know that it was a draw, but just do you have anyone off the top of the mind? Because I have a good one. If you don't, let me know, because I'll go straight to it. Yeah.
Go ahead. Hit me with it.
Okay, so mine is, Mayra Bueno Silva. She's killing the game. She's doing her thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think a very, very interesting matchup could be Taila Santos. right? Brazilian versus Brazilian, submission artist versus submission artist, someone who could really put it on him with the hands and with the power versus another one who could really put it on him. I think that would be the match of two people who are like very close, similar styles and whatnot. And I think that could be an absolute banger. What do you think?
Man, that I'm big on Tyler Santos, and I think that'd be a hell of a fight, man. Especially seeing how, like you said, mean Bueno Silva was. Tyler Santos is the same thing, man. She's very mean. She hits very hard. I think that would be a really nice one. Even if you wanted to go completely opposite, somebody that could wrestle really well. But I think that Tyler Santos fight is the one to make, man. That sounds nice. I'm looking at other people. You got, KGB Lee, but she's fighting coming up. Jessica I, same thing. Not really too much of a big draw. Maybe Calderwood, but I think that Tyler Santos, being how low they are on the rankings, close to each other, and kind of coming up, that would be the fight to make.
I agree, man. And, we don't want to spend too much time because, like I said, there was really no winner on that one. So the next one's got to be Munhoz. And for that, I already said it earlier, spoiler alert, Frankie Edgar versus Pedro Munhoz, number 2. We got to run it back. It makes the most sense. Frankie Edgar coming off of a loss, Pedro Munhoz avenging another big win, or avenging a loss who just got that win. And why not avenge that next loss that you just got to Frankie Edgar? And goes to show that you could really put these people away, or really just, damage them to the point where, it's not even going to be close or whatever the case may be. I think that would be a great fight. But if not that one, this wouldn't be smart for the guy I'm talking about, but maybe versus Rob Font.
I saw that Rob Font fight as well. I was looking at that too, but I don't know if Rob Font would take that fight. Personally, what I think, if you're not going to do the Frankie Edgar rematch, man, give him no love Garbrandt. Throw some no love at him. That would be a hell of a fight for Pedro Munhoz, and that'd be very difficult because Cody Garbrandt strikes hard, hits heavy, and hasn't really been too active. So I would like I miss Cody No Love Garbrandt, man. He's a scrapper, and to see him go against somebody who's also a scrapper like Pedro Munhoz, I think would be very exciting. But Cody is a little low. Cody is 4 or 5 spots back from him, and Rob Font does have that spot right above Pedro Munhoz. So if I was Pedro Munhoz's team, I'm going up. No reason unless you're getting that Frankie Edgar rematch. The only reason to get to not go up is to get that Frankie Edgar rematch and take out Rob Font. Especially because he did have, I forgot who Rob Font's last opponent was. It was a pretty good victory, if I remember correctly. He did win. Do you remember who it was?
I don't remember who it was either, man. But I know it was the hugest win. Was it Moraes or who was it?
I can't remember. Was it Moraes? Either way, he had a pretty good victory. But I think so far going up against Pedro Munhoz, that would be a crazy scrap, especially if Rob Font did win. He would get a little bit more notoriety. And you were right. It was a 1-1 win against Marlon Moraes.
Yeah, right on. So, yeah, man, I think that those are the most logical options, but the Frankie Edgar fight, that's probably the best bet. You know what I mean? It makes the most sense. It'd probably make the most money as well. So, last one we got at the main card, man, Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres. This is a really tough one because he wants a ranked fighter, but he's not ranked, and you can go anywhere with this one, man. So there's a lot of options, but I have one name in particular, man, and this name is Giga Chikadze. You want a test? That's a test for you right there, man. He's not ranked, but he damn near should be, man. You know what I'm saying? And that's a real deal test. So what are your thoughts on that?
Woo, bro, I'm hyped on Giga. You already know that, man. That would be one hell of a fight. I don't even know if Bruce Leroy would want to take that. Obviously, he probably would, you know what I'm saying, for the payday. But, man, that's a crazy fight. That's a hard one. Dude, I'm big on Giga Chikadze, and anytime you say that, I think yes. Another one that might be a little less draw for him would be Ilya Topuria. I think that'd be another good fight. And Ilya Topuria coming up, as well as, taking Caceres having to take on another young dog. That would be a fun fight. But, man, I think if you really want a big test and you want to make a name off somebody that's about to make a name off somebody else, I think you take on Giga.
Yeah, man, I think that's an incredible matchup right there. You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those testaments of be careful what you wish for, man. You want someone ranked, you want a real test, you want a real opponent, Giga will give it to you. And, this dude, Giga Chikadze, right now is on a 7-fight win streak. It's just like the most unheralded beast of a fighter that we have right now in that division. So, nonetheless, man, that was our matchmaking for, the winners of UFC Vegas 20. And let's hit the last part, man. We're going to keep it short and sweet on this one. But let's hit the word on the street, man. And let's just break down on, I only got really a couple things to talk about today. So we just broke some news, right? Not recently. It wasn't really news at all, to be honest. But we had something cool happen recently, and we got Valerie Soto to sit down with us on, all factors considered. And, we was talking about just her career and all that good stuff. And one of the things that I was able to ask her was about her experience in open scoring. In her last fight against Flora Hani at LFA 99, they had open scoring because it was the Kansas Athletic Commission. And she had noticed that it was her and her coach, Brutal Johnny Bedford, former bantamweight bare knuckle BKFC. There we go. Synonym, acronyms, all that, and them be hard for me sometimes. But basically, she said that she enjoyed having the open scoring, right? She likes to know where she stands in the fight. But one of the issues was when you clearly feel like you won the round and the judges don't give it to you. So now you're chasing a finish. Now you got to go and you really got to get something done because, the judges clearly aren't showing it your way. So this is the question that I have for you. Kansas City Athletic Commission has been testing and implementing the open scoring over the past year. They've recorded 92 fights with open scoring in Kansas across 14 events with both LFA and Invicta, right? The data was compared to then 72 fights from Invicta, LFA, and UFC that didn't use open scoring. 72.4% of the fighters, 21 out of 29, who were up by at least 2 points on the judges' scorecard, still went on to win the third round. So one of the main arguments against open scoring is that if you know you're up 2 rounds, you're just going to start coasting. But it's clearly the data is showing that's not the case. We've talked about open scoring before. Do you think that now that we're getting a little more data in that there can actually be a push? I want to know, do you think it makes the sport more professional or less professional? Because it seems to a degree that the Dana Whites of the world and, some other fans of MMA might say, you know what, man, open scoring, it feels a little too regional. It feels a little too, AAA. You know what I'm saying? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it makes it more professional. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason you know the score in a basketball game. There's a reason you know the score in every other game you play. There's for people to say that if you're up by 2 points, you're up 2 rounds, you're going to coast. Well, that's how you get knocked out.
Yeah.
You coast in a fight, man, you're getting put to sleep. So and one of the other, I don't remember if it was Uncle Chael or if it was Michael Bisping saying that to have open scoring is bad because you're going to lose the excitement of watching whoever wins in a decision. I don't think that's true at all, because then you get more upset whenever the person you all watched for 3 rounds beat up somebody else gets the loss. Like I don't see the flaws that a lot of people point out, or especially when they're saying it's a regional fight. Like, man, this is the top of the heap. You know what I'm saying? And like I said before, there's a reason that they're scoring in every other sport. It's to put a little fire in the losers pit and get them to see that it's actually a thing. Because if you're just coasting, a great example is the Alexander Hernandez fight. He thought he was winning that fight, and so much so that after the loss, after the decision was handed out, his coach went to Bruce Buffer and said, "Hey, did you read the correct name?" Yeah. They're like, well, yeah, everyone else saw that. Everyone else was witnessing Vicente Luque just piece you up. But they were so concerned. They were in their own world that they lost, that they're still probably thinking about that stuff. And I think open scoring would help out a lot to see that. Because when you think like, oh man, I'm winning this fight, we're good, I can coast a little bit, and you look at the scorecard and you're like, oh, it's 1-1. Like, oh shit, we got to bang this one out. You got to actually figure out what's going on here. Or you're up like, oh, I'm up 2. Okay, I start coasting a little, boom, catch one hit, and then you're back on the ground again. You know what I'm saying? So I think it only adds another aspect that we need to see.
No, I feel you. And it's interesting because that's the same thing that Soto had said. She says like, well, okay, I thought I won that round, but I see I'm down 2. I got to go now at this point. Like, I know I got to go. I got to go shoot for a takedown. I got to go try to force the action. And that's what's kind of one of the good things is that you would think Jairzinho Rozenstruik, if he would have known, dude, I'm down 4 rounds. I got to go, bro. I got to just start walking ahead and start, throwing some bombs or whatever the case may be. But I do think that open scoring would help the sport. I will say, too, it's funny because you mentioned that Alexander Hernandez fight, man. He was actually, I looked at the overall MMA media scores. Not one media member called it for him. It was like 30-27 all across for Thiago Moises. So, listen, man, it's one of those things where it's just, hey, it gives transparency to the game, and that's what this thing is all about, man. Let's keep it transparent. Let's know, like you said, basketball, I know the score. They're not hiding the score from me, so then it's some big surprise, you know what I mean? It's like we're going to be active. We're going to be involved and engaged nonetheless, man. And we hit that one just perfectly because that is all the time that we have today, folks. So look at that. There we go. Let's go back. Hold on. A little preemptive right there, you know what I mean? I think we hit it just a little bit early, ending the show. Not quite. Let me hit a little housekeeping first, folks. So, Folks, I do want to let you know, we're getting more fighter interviews going over here at All Factors Considered. We're keeping the content going, 3 episodes a week, talking a preview show, a post show, a betting show, all the good stuff. We got your bases covered everywhere you need to go here, talking about UFC, talking about the fight game, man. I'm here with my co-host, as always, AJ, man. AJ, once again, man, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Sitting here, chopping up these fights with me, man. And listen, man, let's let the people know. Let's let them know this, man. If you need to go for anywhere for that premier source of MMA, of the fight game news, man, you come right here. You come to All Factors Considered, folks. So that's all we got this time. Until next time, folks, peace.